How do you maintain an interest in typology, in the theory of types, in your own type, in the knowledge, for example, that you are an INTJ or an ISFP or an ESFJ or indeed an INFJ, like most of you, I imagine, who are watching my channel? How do you maintain this interest? How do you keep it alive? Does it need to be kept alive? Or is it okay for that interest and commitment to flag and wane and perhaps eventually dissipate and no longer be particularly relevant? I want to ask this question because I've been interested lately in this idea of personality types and typology as therapy, whether self-therapy or therapy that is, provided by an actual therapist, for example, a therapist who in their therapy, among other things, among other frameworks, uses the theory of types to understand the person, the client, and to help them, improve in regard to their particular issues, mental health issues, self-exploration issues. This is a vision that I have for myself. As you may well know, it is fair, I think, for me to describe myself as a trainee psychoanalyst at this point. I started my training in September of last year, September 2024, and I do not expect to be finished with my training before 2028, 2029. So it's a long process, but I still am technically a trainee psychoanalyst, learning about this beautiful practice more and more every day. And so, I have a vision of myself, because we always are activated and find meaning in these visions of ourselves in the future and deriving energy and drive from that. You could call that certainly a part of my ego ideal. I certainly envision myself as an analyst who, among other things, uses the theory of types in his work, because I do find it so useful. So this idea of a connection between typology and therapy is something that has interested me before and is now animating me more than ever. But I thought that the sort of reflections that kind of trickle down as ramifications of these initial concerns are worth sharing with you. So it's interesting to ask, why is it that people are interested in personality types? Why is it that some people remain interested for decades and decades in personality types, while others lose interest and move on? In fact, yet others who are kind of like the more extreme version of the category I just mentioned, not only lose interest, but become very cynical, very negative about the theory of types, and sometimes even actively campaign to discredit it and discourage people from growing an interest in it. So in this last category of people, I think it would be fair to say that we're dealing with people who are, for all different species of reasons, resentful. There's resentment toward the theory of types. They consider that instead of helping them, they stifled them, smothered them, boxed them in, thwarted their progress, made them stray from the path, sold them a lie, essentially, and sometimes worse than a lie, a bit of a developmental poison. These people exist. I given my position as a very minor celebrity in the personality community, and as someone who has a YouTube channel, so who is in contact, who is lucky enough to have a wide network of contacts with people of a lot of different types, I know the trends, and I know these people exist. I'm interested in the trends, and I know these people exist, as well as the people belonging to the other categories, those who just lose interest, and those who don't lose interest, those who in fact remain interested. And I have some ideas as to what will cause a person to follow this or that path, or the third path, right? continuous and sustained and resilient interest, loss of interest, or animosity, you know. And I want to share with you some of my interpretations. It will be also interesting to see how you relate to my reflections and where you think you will place yourself 10 years from now. Because from, like, if I were to ask you at time, like, you know, time T right now, you obviously would have to say that your interest is not flagging, that your interest is consistent and driven because you're watching my content. The more interesting question is, where will you be in 5 years from now? Where will you be 10 years from now, 15 years from now? Will you still be interested or not? That's in some ways a more challenging and more interesting question and will reveal a lot about you and your approach to typology, more in fact that it reveals about the theory of types itself. So to proceed with my interpretation, and I believe that this will be probably unfolding over 2 videos because it will take a bit of time. So I think that my main thesis, if you like, and this is a thesis that I am embracing more and more, and it is in fact something that I already sketched in my latest book on the INFJ, because my latest book on the INFJ, The Infinite Soul, INFJ Life in the Modern World, really is of interest to anyone of any type. You know, it's not, it has the INFJ as its kind of central locus, but it sort of expands out to reach across all types. So it's about how INFJs can lead happy, productive, purposeful, and meaningful lives in the modern world today, embracing authenticity and adaptation. The first link below, is the link to the book if you'd be interested. Check the reviews. It's helped a lot of people. A lot of people have called it transformative. So in that book, in The Infinite Soul, I do talk about the infinite attitude to type. All right, the infinite attitude to type versus the finite attitude to type, being in some ways like the essential showdown that determine what the story of the book follows afterwards. Hence why it's sketched out in detail in chapter 1, and then everything follows from that. And the idea of this struggle, this fight, this battle between the finite attitude to type, which sees type as an essentialistic static list of traits to be possessed or not possessed so that you can identify what type you are, versus an infinite attitude to type as a non-finitude where there's an infinite potential number of descriptions that you can use to capture your type, and that other people can capture their type with, which might not be exactly the same as your type, and in the overlap new meanings emerge, such as, for example, how the 4 subtypes of INFJ emerged out of my work on INFJs through the infinite attitude. As long as I had not embraced that particular perspective, that particular stance, there's no way I could ever have, it could have ever have occurred to me that there were different subtypes, and for me to describe them in the way, I think, dynamic, existentialistic way that I described them. So the essential thesis is basically that the more someone embraces an infinite attitude to type, the more certain you can be that these people will remain interested in typology. The more someone embraces a finite attitude to type, a more restricted attitude to type, seeing type as a list of traits to be possessed or lacking, the more likely the person will either lose interest or become resentful towards the very idea of a type, of a personality type, and might become vitriolic and incendiary in how they describe not only those theories but the people who are interested. And I think that whether you become just someone who loses interest or someone who's disillusioned and often resentful really will be conditioned by how much hope you had put into the idea of a personality type when you began to be interested. Someone who thought that the theory of types was going to solve all their problems is likely to fall from grace, right? And follow the typical well-known trajectory of the person who idealizes, and when the idealized object has failed to meet the idealized expectations, devalues the object. It's the way of effecting separation. They need to devalue what they mistakenly idealized, because there's no reason that you should idealize anyone, particularly in adult life. You could admire people, you could be inspired by people, but idealizing is something that is important to some extent in early childhood, but that's about it. So idealizing even like a theory of types. Of course, a lot of people idealize later in life because, people have issues with their mental health. And idealizing a theory of type is the same thing. If you do that, you're going to fall from grace, and you're going to not just lose interest, but you're going to start feeling angry that the promise you thought it had just never showed up. So in the next video, what I will do is I will look at each of these in turn, these different attitudes to the theory of types, to personality types, MBTI, Jungian typology, including also other typologies, possibly, other models. And I will look in detail at in what way the attitude we take to those frameworks ends up determining whether we do or do not maintain interest in them. Just keep in mind that in addition to the Infinite Soul, which I showed you earlier, there is this prequel, the Ecstatic Soul, a new look at the INFJ personality, which is the deepest investigation of the INFJ mind, what happens in their INFJ consciousness. What's it like to think like an INFJ? What's it like to be an INFJ? If you want to know more about this, you should check this book at the link below. Check the reviews. It's very well reviewed. It's a kind of a bestseller at this point. I really recommend check it out. It's helped a lot of people, and nothing goes deeper. As usual, guys, don't forget that Patreon is the lifeblood of my channel. I could not do it without you, and I'd be so appreciative if you consider donating to my channel. The link is below to my Patreon, and you get some really cool perks as well, like access to our elite Discord server where I'm there every day, as well as like 39 other people at the moment who are really cool and have lots of good ideas. You also get access to bonus video contents every 2-3 weeks where I go in depth about a topic of your choosing, and other perks besides. So please consider it. It would help me massively. Could not do it without you. In the meantime, take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.